Blade Seed Studios coming back at you with another video. Today we are going to be playing on a Minecraft Towny Earth server, building a Japanese compound village. We are going to kick this off by working on my wall. I forgot to record the beginning of me building. I didn't plan on this being a video until I already got started. The wall is made up of quartz block, cobbled deep slate, warped planks, as well as some oak stairs with logs for the entrances. My buddy decided to come over with some stairs and show me you can sit on them, so we sat down and had a conversation and chit-chatted in our Discord channel. By the way, the link's in the description. So, getting back to the action, I decided these trees needed to go, taking up too much space where I want to build. Beginning my first building, I decided to lay down a base foundation made of oak logs. Then made sure to strip them, make them look a little bit nicer in my opinion. I proceeded to add planks to the inside of my new homestead. I know it don't look like no house yet, but it will be a homestead eventually. Now getting the basic layout set up with the foundational pillars, making everything look a little bit more structurally sound. Gotta make them good looking Minecraft builds, if you know what I'm saying. Now it's time for me to start working on the walls. This was a major process for me, even on a server like this, due to the fact of I'm building these out of white concrete, and you have to obviously get concrete wet and able to get pure concrete, and well, it's still a little bit of a hassle on this server, even though you can buy concrete powder. I finish up the walls here and decide to get started with adding my trapdoors to the outside for a little bit more detail. A little bit more detail makes every build look a lot nicer. It's just with the little things, you know. Continue going all the way around to each window and place trapdoors down on the outskirts and the insides to make them look like shutters. Let me tell you what, it took so much wood to get all the trapdoors to go all the way around this base. There's just so many trapdoors on this base, but they just look so damn good. I love trapdoors. They're just absolutely amazing for building. I proceed to start working on my roof, making it out of oak slabs and oak stairs, and eventually there's going to be some cobbled deep slate stairs and slabs as well added to it. It'll be a nice addition to the oak. As you can see, here comes that cobbled deep slate now. A lot of my Japanese builds will be resulting in oak and cobbled deep slate throughout this video, so if you guys really don't like that, I do apologize, but that's just my block format for these builds. I just know some people prefer like spruce and other darker woods for builds, but oak's just an OG. It's been in the game for the longest, so I just tend to use it. It's usually my go-to. My first layer around the house was an oak strip. I didn't really mention that, but the next layer is going to be a cobbled deep slate strip. I make sure to finish off my little side roof here. Totally forgot to finish it off at first. Got too busy starting the other bits of the roof. Continue around with some cobbled deep slate slabs going all the way around my base. Added more structural support beams throughout the build. Make it look good from the outside, let alone make it look structurally sound. Now I'm deciding to add some quartz layering to the next layer. We are going to completely fill this in. Mind you, this is quartz, not white concrete. The bottom layer I used as white concrete. The top layer I am using as quartz. A lot easier for me to purchase on this server and just kind of go about it. It's a lot quicker to build with, even though I do prefer the looks of white concrete more than normal blocks of quartz. Decided to fill in this little space with some quartz, but then decided to add in a support beam that's made out of oak logs. Now it's time for me to add in some windows. I'm gonna completely rinse and repeat the same idea as I did downstairs, just opening up a nice big window and adding in lots of shutters to kind of add lots of detail. I can really appreciate the trapdoors, like I was saying before. They're just a gorgeous block to build with. You can do so much. You can make like different planners, you can make little shades, or shutters, not shades, my bad, but like very cool, unique designs with them. You can make different lanterns. There's just so much ideas that you can do with trapdoors. It's amazing. As I'm finishing up the walls here, I did notice that this oak looked a little bit off, so I decided to end up filling it back in properly, making it look a little bit better. Would have made my roof completely imbalanced and improper instead of sitting the way that it's supposed to. So I ended up fixing this part of the roof, ended up fixing the other part of the roof that I realized that I was miscalculating. I continue pushing forward on my big house here and decide to start doing the Japanese quote quote style of building that this is by adding in these oak layers and layering them just right to make it look like they have a little bit more of a pointy structure instead of just a real plain Jane vanilla structure. Definitely messed it up the first time, so I had to go back up there and make sure that it was good. And after fixing it, I ended up finishing it up and adding in my trapdoors and whatnot, and heading over to the other side and finishing this side off as well. This side, of course, I didn't have no issues though, but the other side was giving me a hassle trying to figure out exactly how I wanted it. So I do the same thing on every single side going all the way around the house. Each side's a little bit different, but not much different, so I'm just gonna kind of cut through it and show you a little bit of me building it. I will openly admit that I did mess up a couple times, but that's bound to happen with a bigger build like this. Now, this side of the wall did so happen to give me a lot of issues. For whatever reason, I could not get this back side of the house to line up properly. But eventually I got it and took care of it. Finishing up the roof, attaching all four corners here, made it very nice because everything was complete for the base of the roof now. Now I decided to start adding in my layering to give it more of the Japanese style feel. Now finishing up the first layer, I have decided that I'm going to start working on the underneath. Hopping down to the bottom here now, we end up layering in some of this, making it look a little bit better because of the detail that's being paid attention to it. It's amazing how just such minor details can play such a major thing in your builds. Like, you just misplace one block or put one block over here instead of there, or, you know, like these slabs in this section here, you know, if you layer them just slightly wrong or slightly different, it's gonna throw off your entire build. But it can also make your build look so amazing at the end of the day if you just put in a little bit of work and dedication into it. I finish up my third layer of the roof here, and for whatever reason, I didn't catch it, but my roof is definitely slightly off-center just by like one block, and I ended up catching it later on in this scene here, which, you know, wasn't too big of a deal because I just had to destroy a few blocks and replace things, but it was still a little bit of a pain because it just slowed down my overall build time. And pretty close to right now is when I actually noticed that it was off, because I was like, that doesn't quite look right, and it turns out that it was literally one block off, which figures, right? So we ended up fixing that, we mined that out, replaced the blocks down, re-put up the stone slabs going across, or the cobbled deep slate slabs going across, and now the roof is actually properly finished. See me going around, a little bit happy about it just because it looks right now. Now I'm going to finish off the roof here by adding in some more cobbled deep slate, going in layers, adding in some stairs to the roof for extra detail. Now, what you can do in situations like this as well is you can go and add in some other type of deep slate. Like you can add in actual deep slate, you can add in the different varieties of newer deep slate. I can't remember all of them off from the top of my head, but you can throw in just a little bit of extra detail into the roof where I'm not doing so, which I probably will later on, but currently right now I'm not too worried about it. I end up going around and placing fences down around the edges, which I think I'm going to switch out these cobblestone pillars that are going up in the middle for support beams as well. I think I'm going to switch them back out with fences because I think they'll look better that way, instead of there being just a weird cobblestone block being in the way while there's fences trying to pass through. This is going into more detail with the trapdoors, adding in detail on the roof. Makes a huge difference, and on these little side sections here I couldn't actually get them placed down because I was having a small brain moment. Yeah, you can't shift click and place stuff down while you're flying in the air. I do have a rank on this server, which makes it a little bit easier for me to build, but I still have to go and get all the resources that I can't find in the shop or don't have the money for in the shop. Which, there's a great example right there. Me buying some wood to make some trapdoors, but it takes so much wood. At the beginning of this build, I didn't have a rank, so it made it a lot harder. I wasn't really focused on buying a rank right off the bat when I first joined the server, but I do like this server, so I decided to support it. If you guys want to join me and play on this server with me and possibly join our town or village, me and my buddies, I have a couple buddies that we play with on this server, but we have our own little town, and this is part of my building of it, and then they have their own parts and extensions, which is pretty cool, but it's manicured, and you can see it down in the, well, like middle of the screen on the right hand side. It's on the bottom of the HUD screen. It says play.manicube.com. I did end up continuing to work on my wall because it was not the greatest. It did not have a lot of detail. It just was very bland. It looked like some 5-year-old or 7-year-old made it. Like, I mean, I've seen some good 7-year-old builders, but that's not a very common thing around here. Like, you don't see that very frequently, where there's 7-year-olds that know how to build massive structures, or even a big wall like this that has a little bit of detail in it, you know? And speaking of detail, I decided to add in just a little bit more detail into my wall here. I almost called it a fence, ironically enough. Adding in these chains and adding in lanterns is going to make a huge difference in not only the looks of the wall, but just overall, like, mob spawning and the whole 9 yards. We don't want no mobs. We don't want no creepers specifically coming over and blowing our stuff up, because no thank you. And it takes a lot of time to build stuff like this, and creepers just love destroying everything that you build, spend all your precious time on. Cutting into the next build here, we decide to do a base layout for this one as well to make it a little bit easier for me. Deciding to add in an outside layer for the structure to make it a little bit more detailed, adding in some stairs and some oak slabs. I had to craft a few more slabs because I did not have enough to finish off this bottom layer, and a couple more stairs to add in a little bit more detail. You know, it kind of adds it in a detail to where it looks like there's pegs standing instead of, you know, just some floating, you know, boards, so to speak. I guess that's the best word for it. Into the next bit here, I start adding in the structural support beams, or what we would call it in a real life house. You know, I try to stick to real life building as much as I can. I want to have, you know, a cliff base. I want to make sure it has supports, you know. Want to make sure it has, you know, proper structural supports. I don't even know the proper word for it. I just want to make sure that it's structurally sound. Like, if I were to see that house in real life or see that building in real life, I want to make sure it would be structurally sound, because obviously a house in real life is just gonna fall over. It's If it's not structurally sound, it's not gonna do good. It's just gonna collapse. And I want to kind of keep the same idea here for Minecraft. I know it's a pixelated game, but floating trees aren't cool, and neither are floating buildings, unless it's like a spaceship, which that would be a cool Minecraft idea. I haven't thought of any ideas like that. That's a crazy idea. Maybe I'll do a space themed village at some point, or a space themed something at some point. I think that'd be pretty cool. It's pretty basic for this build. It's the same concept as the concept over on the bigger house, with the white concrete and the oak stripped logs and the oak stairs and oak slabs. It's rinse and repeat for the most part. It's the same style kind of building. I did mess up here on one of these sides. I can't remember what side it was, but I did mess up on there, and you'll see that a little bit further. I corrected it. Add in the walls here, a little bit more detail. And here comes the cobbled deep slate, like I was saying before. This is just my palette selection for this build. It's quartz, white concrete, cobbled deep slate, and whether it's slabs or stairs or whatever, full-blown logs like in this scene here. It's just my select palette of blocks for this build. And I think this is where I noticed that everything was a little wonky on this side, or it might have been on the other side. I can't quite remember. Maybe it was right here. That little tss that you guys were just hearing was actually a grasshopper that was in my room, and I figured I'd just leave it in the audio while I was recording, because why not? It's something very unique to happen while recording. Here we are, working on the rest of the house here, checking my task, basic server stuff. If you guys play, you'll understand what all that stuff is. But adding in this roof here, this is where I noticed, or a little bit prior is where I noticed that the roof was off center, so this is where I ended up fixing the roof, because it desperately needed to be fixed. It did not look proper at all. It really just, blocks that line up perfectly with the rest of the build, just, I don't know, it just doesn't look too well. Like, you need to have a little bit of an overhang, and you need to have a little bit more enthusiasm and depth into a build, rather than just some plain Jane blocky styled build. I mean, I know it's Minecraft and the entire game's blocks, but just having that little bit of a lip makes a huge difference in the detail. And cut out me chopping all the wood away and whatnot, and just made sure you guys got to see the building and me fixing it, because it really definitely needed to be fixed. It was not looking too hot. We finished up the rest of the roof here. I had to craft a little more stairs to be able to finish it off, but that ain't no big deal. I had a perfect amount. And then I decided to add in some more support beams and finish off this back wall, where I am going to start adding in a little bit more detail here in a minute. I quickly finished up the other side, adding a little bit more detail, knocked in a door area, stripped some more logs, and filled in the rest of the area with white concrete to finish it up. Proceeded to finish the roof with some stairs, upside down stair and a stair on top. It gives it a little bit more of a detailed look rather than, just one stair. You can also add in a little bit more detail with like slabs and whatnot, as well as I did on my previous build. This is a little bit smaller. Adding in like a little side roof here, make it look a little fancier. It's a little bit of a pain in the butt to try to figure out exactly the placement and how you want to line everything up, but I managed. Added in supports on the side and added in my trap doors so it looks like an actual window. giving it lots of detail. Now we cut to the inside of my house, and I just wanted to make a couple small details on the inside. I had finished off the where the layering would be for the next floor up, and I finished off a small window, made some trapdoors and whatnot, filled those in, put in my doors. Just very small details on the on the inside. And then I cut over to the outside and decide to start adding my outside details that are part of this house primarily. Right here I'm deciding to add like a little chimney style type area and a little side roof kind of covering the area. The idea behind this spot is it's supposed to be like a little blacksmith house. I thought that it was a good idea, so I just went with it and decided to keep going with it. And here, once again, I mess up lining up my roof. It's supposed to be 3 blocks wide with the cobbled deep slate, but it is not in that scene. And I ended up fixing it right away because I caught it very quickly this time. Unlike everything else I have not caught very quickly at all. Just not paying attention or whatever, off doing something else, or I gotta go grab something, or there's a whole spiel of excuses, and I'm not trying to sit here and list them all. I continue to work on doing this here and making sure both sides is very even because, knowing my luck, it would just be another mess up to where it's not even. I finish off the roof and I proceed to start adding in a little bit more details on the outside, adding in like a little side chimney near the other chimney, adding in some fences on the outside, kind of looking like boards going across. Wasn't sure exactly how I wanted to do these chimneys, but I kind of had a little bit of an idea, so I kind of just went with what I was thinking, and I thought that it turned out decent. This chimney I decided to raise a little bit because it was so close sitting down to the roof, but once again, rinse and repeat, same idea, not that hard. Add in my fences and whatnot to this area to make sure it's a little bit more even. Decided to move the one fence over just due to the fact of it not lining up properly. I add in my lava and my other small details like my anvil. I had to readjust those stairs because there wasn't enough room. Added in the anvil, the blast furnace, the sawmill, or the grindstone, my bad, not a sawmill, and a chest for, the blacksmith's items, diamonds, gold, iron, whatever you want to throw in there. Some leather armor I think I threw in there too. There's some fishing rods, whatever you would kind of see at a blacksmith. It makes some type of sense to see at a blacksmith, but, it's never that easy to exactly say what a blacksmith would be because of the history and whatnot. So we jump over to the next build here. This I am deciding to do like weird, kind of large, but not too large because there's a lot of large buildings in Minecraft when you really get into it. Gazebo. So this little gazebo I wanted to be kind of in the center of the town, and I realized later on that it was just a little bit bigger than I wanted it to be, but it's not that big of a deal because it ended up fitting in really nice. So I decided to use just real basic design going along the edges, filling in the cross members here. I'm going to fill it in with grass, which I'll be doing here in a second, and then possibly, put some flowers or maybe some moss on there, one of the azalea trees, or however you say it. I don't know how to say it. Make sure to add some fences around the sides to add just a little bit more pizzazz to it, a little bit more detail. Since this is one of the primary builds that's going to be in the middle of the village, I want to make sure that there's at least a decent amount of detail in this build. So I decided to start extending it up further and add trapdoors and fences around the edges to make a little bit more of a detailed, like, bottom part. It's kind of hard to explain what that would be, to be honest. I decided to start stripping all of these logs, that way it just blends in more with the oak feel and it blends in more with my other buildings. It already looks pretty decent. I get some of the warped wood and place it down and strip that as well to make it look extra nice. Make it blend in with everything else. Add just that little bit more detail. Now this right here is a major part of this build. And just like any other roof for the Japanese style or tradition of building, this specific building, you have to get this so perfectly lined up or else it's not going to look good at all. You get it lined up and it's going to be looking better than the other buildings that I've already built. Here we are, coming to a quick little time lapse of me building the edges, making it have that real nice sharp look where there's lots of curves, there's lots of detail, there's lots of texture. Making sure to use the trapdoors, the slabs, and stairs to the best of my ability to produce as much detail as possible. And let me tell you what, this roof was such a pain in the butt, it's not even funny. Like, it took me so long to sit here, even with flying, which is saying so much. If I were to build this in survival, it would have taken me so much longer, and it would have been so much more footage to edit through. Here we are, this is like the first layer of the gazebo completely built. Just a little bit more detail on the edges, just to add that little bit of extra length in there. Give it that little bit more sharp point look. And of course, we do this on each side. And here we are going up one more level. This build is about 2/3 of the way done. Still gotta add one more layer, like the layer below, and then we gotta add a roof on top. I decided to strip this just like the rest of it to make it fit in. I finish up the top layer here, and then I put in slabs in the center to finish the middle. I proceed to rinse and repeat with the same thing as below with the fences and trapdoors, making a very simple but nice and detailed design. Deciding that the fence didn't look good, I decided to switch it out with a fence gate in the center. And then, the next part, it's the same thing as below. It's completely rinse and repeat, but it's just a little bit smaller this time, so it doesn't extend out as far. But there's still just as much detail, and it's still built almost exactly the same on all four sides, going all the way around. This is the last bit of the second layer, using trapdoors and slabs. Moving forward, I decided to start doing the roof. I was gonna do slabs to begin with, but I decided against that and decided to switch them all out to stairs. Deciding that it would give it a little bit more of a better look to it. Putting in a nice big support beam in the center. Adding in that final little touch of detail on the roof. And I wasn't sure how to really change this up or switch it to make it look a little bit more detailed, but eventually I got an idea down and put that in. Makes it so it just looks like it's a little bit lower than it actually is on the roof. Throwing some more minor details on there, like some buttons, and adding in this warped wood. It just makes that pop just a little bit more. Now it's time to start finishing up the bottom part of the roof so it looks good from the inside. That way it doesn't look just good from the outside. I want it to look good both ways. And this way I can also add in my lantern hanging in the middle. I'm just gonna make it go from, like a 5-star build to like an 8-star build. This makes it look just a little bit nicer with that hanging lantern. I made sure to add lots of lanterns down at the bottom as well because this is supposed to be the middle of the village. It's supposed to look really nice. It's supposed to have lots of light, it's supposed to be extraordinary and extravagant. So why not just add them extra details into it? It just makes it look that much better. Let alone having a light source so no nasty little creeper spawn. I decided to add a little bit further of an extension to this pond that's near my house over here. Just, why not, you know? Just add a little bit more detail. I wasn't sure what I wanted to build over in this section, so I just started going ham, building a bigger pond, just like real life. Here I am just filling in this back left corner of my compound. Wanted to make sure that everything looked really nice and terraformed properly. I was hoping to maybe squeeze in a house or put a house back there, but I decided to just keep going with my pond idea. I just thought that it looked really good, so I just kept going with it. So I decided to outline it with this deep cobbled slate just so I can have a basic outline of what my pond was and what I wanted it to be. Which I think this is a pretty cool design. It almost looks like a yin yang, but not quite because it's not a circle. It wouldn't fit properly. It doesn't look right, you know? This is where I decided to start filling it in. It's water. And then I decided, well, instead of cobble deep slate, I think I'm going to actually do a decent design around the edges. Further along, I decided to start building a little island in this pond, figuring that I would turn this into a fishing pond. I wanted it to look really nice, so I was trying to figure out a good shape. I decided to start replacing the bottom dirt with podzol because I figured it would give it a little bit more detail with more of a muddy, textured look to it. I want to go around the edges of the pond with like a stone and andesite and cobblestone, stuff like that. The reason why I want to build this fishing pond is in this server, the MCMMO plugin mod that there is, you are allowed to level up different skills. You can kind of see it on the top with like excavation and whatever I'm doing. Um, and it just so happens that there is one for fishing, and you can catch tons of different kinds of fish. You can catch common, uncommon, rare, legendary. They're all different sizes, shapes, colors. It's really unique. I thought that it was pretty cool. Another thing that I wanted to build somewhere along this as well is like fishing league board type thing. I don't really know a good word for it or a good, building word for it. I guess that's the best way to put it. Just somewhere where we can store all of our town records as a whole. Just make a little fishing village or something. I don't know what I'm gonna do yet. I decided to remove all the deep cobblestone around the pond because I just figured it would not look nice trying to be matched up with that. I was very focused on finishing the pond, getting all the good texture and detail around the edges with all the stone, cobblestone, andesite. I decided to add in these little pillars as well with the cobbled stone walls. Moving forward, I start replacing all of the grass blocks with the other materials that I've used around the pond, the andesite, the cobblestone. Wrapping up the edges around the island, I decide to start working on top. I want to do a cool little design. I'm not sure exactly what I wanted to do, but I ended up coming up with something at the end of the day. I think it turned out pretty nice. This was the final design that I decided to go with for this build. Moving forward, I ended up finishing up the bottom of the pond with a little bit more podzol, and that's the end of this build. I decided to move forward and start working on my walls even more because I just figured there was not enough detail in these walls for my liking, so I figured I'd just add a little bit of texture to it instead of just being super bland and plain. One of the challenges that I faced with doing this design along the wall is the corner pieces, but I think I ended up making it look pretty nice and got a decent design down. It took a little bit of finagling and working around with it to get a good design going all the way around, but eventually I figured it out. Moving on to the next build, I am deciding to put a couple support beams going into the pond and adding some support beams to land as well. So it'll be a little bit of an addition to the pond, but not quite because it's its own separate building. I added my second layer to this building. I decided that this was going to be a mob spawner building because on this server we have the capability of stacking mob spawners. So you can stack 64 in one mob spawner, which is really cool. This is an actual design for a iron golems like spawn system. Not necessarily a spawner. I was about to say spawner, but it's not a spawner. It's manipulating the village's mechanics to spawn iron golems. End up using that mechanic, it flows down the iron golems, throws them into a lava pit. It's a really awesome idea, and it's a very easy way to get iron. Now on this server, iron can be sold for cash or other objects in game, which is pretty cool. Having iron golem farm is very essential on this server, so I just figured this would be the best way to do it. Following another guide that spawns iron golems, but I'm not having it set up that way. I'm just going to put down my spawner so the iron golems spawn. I start adding my underneath detail just to make it look so much nicer, give it a little bit more depth and detail. I rinse and repeat along the top as well, just to give that little bit of extra detail in there. I realized that I messed up and this layer needed to go up one more. And then later on, I also mess up on this build. So here we are. I cut back into it and have it all fixed so you guys don't have to sit there and watch me destroy this. Add in my detail as if it was the bottom layer. I add my third layer on top, and this is where I realized that I messed up again. So I ended up moving this over to where it's supposed to be so it doesn't look funny, and I continue building along. I start adding in my little final bits of detail, going all the way around, make sure everything looks rather even and not, combobulated, as I would say. I keep working on my walls, made out of white concrete to suit the rest of the theme. Mind you, I'm pretty sure this is my only build throughout this video that has used a different kind of wood and didn't use oak wood. I can't believe I'm just now realizing that as I'm going through editing and talking on this video. So I also realized throughout this build that this was also slightly off compared to the outside, so I ended up fixing this as well. End up adding in my final details to the top, just like every other piece down from the bottom all the way to the top. Using glass panes, I fill in the holes, make good sized windows so you can see inside of the building. I wanted to jump down to the bottom to finish off this bottom layer. Added in some cobbled deep stone stairs. No, not stairs. Walls. My apologies for that one. And here I am adding in some oak leaves and some dark oak leaves, if I'm not mistaken. I add in my water that's going to push the iron golems into the massive killing lava pit. I added my pressure plates, that way the water doesn't combine into one whole source block. We need it to push them iron golems. We can't have anything standing still. I decided to go with a relatively simple design for the roof, keeping it, real basic, not going above and beyond with this one because I've already done a couple above and beyond roofs and I just didn't really feel like doing it with this build. Now, I will openly admit, I really could not decide what the hell I wanted to do for my roof. Like, the design on top and the little edges poking out. I went through like 3 or 4 different designs trying to figure out exactly what looked good, and I ended up just going with the most basic design ever. I ended up using stairs just to make that little nook stick out of the top of the roof on both sides. I ended up coming with a simple design using oak wood for the roof and 1 strip of cobbled deep stone stairs going up the middle. I think it ended up looking decent. I make sure to put in my spawners, and yes, I have lots of iron golem spawners. They are very important for making money on this server. Soon to realize that I did not finish some of the details on the outside, I ended up moving up to the outside and finishing up all the small details on the outside. There wasn't quite enough detail for me, so I ended up deciding to come up with a little design poking out, making like little roofs over the edges, which I thought was a cool, unique idea to this build, so I ended up just doing it, full sending it, and I thought it looked good. Proceeding to the next build, this is going to be a real small, quick one, but it fits in the small space that's near my big dojo type house. Real simple design using some stone stairs and some oak. I do really like this design of small house, so if you have seen my first survival hard mode let's play, this house design is in my hard mode let's play. Try keeping the same concept of oak and white concrete, make everything blend in and look good together. Once again, I'll be using trapdoors to create windows and add detail to a build per usual. It's just one of those things. I just love trapdoors. They're just my favorite. Or one of my favorites, I should say. I started working on the roof, adding in this cool little unique design using some stone, or cobblestone, deep cobblestone, my bad, deep cobblestone slabs and some deep cobblestone stairs. After finishing the first layer of the roof, I end up starting to move to the inside. I removed the dirt where the windows is that I just got done placing. I put down some lanterns and I put in this oak layer to where you can stand on it and it'll be a second floor once the roof's complete. I do the same all the way around, making it all look even. I started adding in the final support beams that'll be holding up the roof. Just like I said before, I just want everything to, look structurally sound. I want it to look like an actual building that you'd see in real life. The roof was being a little bit tricky with me, but it happens. It ain't no big deal. I've built this style so many times, it's a little bit easier than it looks. Add in the trapdoors for windows, add in the final stairs, making the roof finally connect. Keeping the same concept for each side, and just kind of go all the way around and do the same thing. These other sides here that are shown now are a little bit trickier to do just because they're just slightly bigger, but it wasn't no biggie. It's same stuff, different build. And get some oak slabs and oak stairs to start finishing off the roof. Real basic design, but it just gives it just that little bit of oomph and a little bit of extra texture, which is always what I'm looking for. Bouncing into the action again, here we are. I already decided to lay out all of my stone and tuff and andesite layout that you see below where I'm walking. But I just decided to cut straight to the build because laying down that stone and andesite and whatnot, it's just very boring and it's very bland. It's the same thing, rinse and repeat. I'd like to just show you guys my build then. So I decided to keep working on this. This is going to be a marketplace, which is going to come together and you'll see it comes together rather nice at the end. It's at the front of my village, so I figured it would be a good entrance, like, hey, welcome to the village, like you can buy some armor and some tools and you can buy some food and it doesn't matter, you can just chill in here if you really wanted to. It's a marketplace, it's a bazaar, so why not? I tried my best to keep it to the Japanese style that I'm kind of building in, but it's small stalls, so it's a little bit tricky to give it the Japanese cultural look. As my gameplay's playing, I just want to take the time to thank anybody that has fully sat down and watched this video, because it is a very long video, and I do appreciate you guys that do sit down and watch my entire videos, because it does make a massive difference. Thank you guys, I appreciate you guys, just know that. Also, if you like my content, don't forget to leave a subscription and a like. Finishing up this build in here, this is going to be the final stand for this build. Just need to keep bringing this fence over because there's another small piece that I'm going to add here in a minute. I'm thinking that it's looking pretty good. I decided to take out some of this grass to add in my pathway connecting to the Market Bazaar. That way it can look even more official. Here I decided to flatten down the dirt here, but I ended up switching that up with some stone and andesite and whatnot, which matches the rest of the village as well. Start adding in all my little details, water in the cauldrons, item frames on the shelves and on the racks, which gives it that much more detail, which is really nice. I add in a few lanterns to light up the area and add in just a little bit of extra detail, which, how I am. I gotta detail absolutely everything. Here I am adding in a little bit of bamboo shelves, which is going to be used as like a cupboard almost type situation. It's meant to just kind of look like storage, so you can throw something on your shelves or racks, whatever you want to call them. And then in the final bits of detail here, I decided to turn this one into like the marketplace where you can buy, your swords and your axes and your armor and your coal and stuff like that, just like you'd see in a game like Skyrim. The little details make a huge difference in small builds like this. It just takes things to a whole nother level. The middle market's going to be used for food, and the little left market's going to be used for fishing equipment and whatnot. I have a rink, so I was capable of putting some cool diamond armor and some diamond tools in this little blacksmith bazaar. But for whatever reason, this armor stand was giving me a massive pain. Just for absolutely no reason. It was very frustrating. I ended up destroying it, and it ended up fixing the problem. Adding in the final bits of detail here. Adding in a log with some railroad tracks over it. Just gives it that little bit of extra flavor. I wanted to finish off this fence post so it looked a little bit more connected with the rest of the town. Also, another thing that I noticed was I did not use as much oak wood. I used a little bit of spruce or dark oak wood by the looks of it for part of these builds instead of using normal oak. So there's a couple things in these builds that I've decided to experiment a little bit. I didn't use complete oak, it's completely alright. I decided to keep working on the paths throughout the town to just add that little bit of extra flavor into it. This is one of the builds that I'm right next to that you guys didn't get to see. I didn't put it in the video. I wasn't recording when I should have been. I wasn't thinking about making a video out of this. So that's just a little horse stable. And the other small build to the left of the bazaar, the marketplace, whatever you want to call it, there is like a small little rock garden style type thing. I make sure to connect all of my pathways to all of my houses to make sure that there's, a nice easy path to each house. There's nobody tripping on anything. Like I said, you gotta try to keep it somewhat realistic. I know it's Minecraft, but that's just the way that I like looking at things. I like having fun in that way. This is Blade Seed Studios Japanese compound base. What do you guys think? How'd it turn out? Do you guys think it turned out good? Obviously, there's still a little bit more detail to add, and I'm definitely going to do that, but it's definitely going to be in a separate video. This video is ungodly long enough as is and took hours to cut up and edit. You guys get to have a little bit of a sneak peek here at the next build. My name is Blade Seed Studios, and I'm out.